Hi, I'm Pennsylvania attorney John Benson. In this video, I'm going to answer the 5 questions we're often asked regarding the division of property in a divorce. The first question we often get is, what property will I get to keep after the divorce? You will get to keep a fair share of your marital property, also known as community property in some states. Marital property is property that you and your spouse accumulated during your marriage. And this may include your home, vehicles, investments, personal property, and retirement accounts. Marital property is usually divided equally between the spouses. An unequal division is sometimes appropriate to avoid alimony or provide for a spouse with special needs. You will also keep all of your separate property provided it has not been so mixed with marital property that it cannot be identified. Separate property is property you acquired before marriage and property you received during marriage as a gift or inheritance. Earnings from separate property that accumulate during marriage, such as interest or dividends, are marital property that is divided. The second most often question we're asked is, what happens to the home during a divorce? If one spouse wants the home and can afford it, the equity in the home is credited to that person's share of the marital property. The spouse taking the home must provide the other spouse with equivalent assets or cash in compensation for his or her share of the equity. The equity can be determined by having the home appraised and then deducting any outstanding mortgages. If you and your spouse cannot agree on who keeps the home, or if neither of you can afford it or want it, the usual alternative is to sell the home and split the proceeds. If you think you want to keep the family home, ask yourself these questions. 1, can you afford to buy out your spouse's interest? 2, can you afford to pay the mortgages, taxes, and upkeep on the post-divorce budget? 3, is suitable alternative housing available for a more affordable price? Often, neither party can afford the home, and the only realistic solution is to sell it. The third question we often get is, am I entitled to a portion of my spouse's retirement accounts after the divorce? All property accumulated during your marriage, including your spouse's retirement plan, is subject to division. You will be entitled to a fair share, usually half of the amount accrued in your spouse's retirement account from the time you married until you divorce. Your spouse could buy out your share of the plan by giving you other marital assets or separate assets. Otherwise, the plan benefits are divided. A court order, known as a qualified domestic relations order, or as we often say, QDRO, may need to be sent to the plan administrator to complete the division. Retaining an interest in your spouse's retirement plan may be important if you are unlikely to secure sufficient retirement benefits otherwise. Alternatively, you may prefer a buyout if you expect to have adequate retirement benefits from your employment. The next question we often get is, what can I do to prevent my spouse from taking my possessions and draining our accounts before we file for divorce? You'll want to document what you own so that if your spouse does take or destroy property, you will have proof that the property existed. Take photos, create an inventory, copy the titles, and financial documents. The court could award you a greater share of the marital property to compensate for missing assets. When you file for divorce, you can ask the court for orders prohibiting this behavior. A spouse who violates these orders can be punished. The final question we often get is, what happens if my spouse wasted a lot of our assets during the marriage? Sometimes one spouse spends marital assets excessively for selfish reasons. Some examples include 1, spending substantial sums on an extramarital affair, or 2, spending lavishly on drugs, alcohol, partying, or gambling. If you did not condone or benefit from the excessive spending, the court may award more of the remaining marital property to you to make up for the wasted funds. Please give us a call if you would like to schedule a consultation to speak about divorce or other family law matters. Our telephone number is 215-348-4416.